Can I get a bit of the right-wing logic behind that? Like, they want to revoke the apologies for World War II? For actions taken during World War II?
They think that the apologies were overblown. Like, Japan fought that war in self-defense.
Classic self-defense move.
Classic self-defense.
Well, there's a guy, the former chief of staff of Japan's Air Force, he wrote an essay arguing that secret Chinese communist spies orchestrated the incident that caused Japanese and Chinese to exchange fire and result in the whole full-scale invasion of China. And he won a prize from the owner of, somebody who's in the family that owns the Appa Hotels chain. Appa Hotels is a chain that many of your viewers will stay at. If you stay there, it's a very affordable small hotel room, and you get free right-wing literature in English that will tell you why Japan was not bad in World War II and why it was actually
like Ludwig's house when you stay there.
It is like Ludwig's house.
He has a Mein Kampf and stuff.
If you go, there's a little brochure in the guest room at Ludwig's house, and it's a crazy read.
Yeah, I mean, they think a lot of the atrocities are just fabrications, Chinese people lying. They think that the Americans forced Japan into Pearl Harbor by cutting off Japan's oil and arming China. They think the war crimes trials after the war were just unfair victors' justice. So that shrine, the Yasukuni Shrine in Tokyo, it is like a place where the spirits of all the war dead, including the 14 war leaders who were executed in the war crimes trials, is like a political flashpoint for diplomatic things. So if Takaichi, she's visited it all the time in the past when she wasn't prime minister, but right now she's kind of holding her cards. It's not clear if she'll visit or not, but if she doesn't, her supporters will still be like, yeah, but she visited all those times in the past and she still believes these things. So she still respects these, but the emperor and the emperor's family has never gone to that shrine ever since they enshrined the war criminals in the 1970s. They just stopped going completely. And so the position of a more moderate conservative in Japan is that I will visit Yasukuni when it is made to be like a shrine that the emperor can visit. And that sounds cooler than, I think the wartime leaders are the worst bad guys ever, and that's why I'm not visiting. And there's a lot of problems with those war crimes trials if you read about them. I mean, they were very problematic. I'm not saying that they were not guilty, but it was very arbitrary about who got blamed for what. Right. And
we dropped 2 atomic bombs. It's not like there's not like a clean bill of health on one side.
Right. Every time Japan is playing in an international sports game against America, I'm reminded on Twitter of those bombs by people leaving responses. But
people do whip that one out.
People do drop
a little too liberally, I would say. A little too.
Yeah. I think one of the big shocks to Japanese students when I teach them about the politics of war memory is that in America, there are a lot of people who are like, hell yeah, the bombs were good and we should have dropped them. And like, why would America ever apologize for that? And Japanese, actually, a lot of them don't know that there's Americans who have this like gung-ho view. Yeah. I show them videos about it and they're like, wow, I can't believe. Like there's a video of an A-bomb scientist who meets a Japanese TV channel, takes him to meet elderly bomb survivors who ask him for an apology. And he's like, why don't you apologize for Pearl Harbor? And they start crying. Like these 80-year-olds start crying. And he's just like, remember Pearl Harbor. I had a friend who died at Pearl Harbor. And they asked him like, there's an eternal flame in Hiroshima. Like they say they'll turn it off when nuclear weapons are gone from this world. And they ask him like, do you think this will ever be turned off? And he's like, I think the world will run out of gas first. Like, so.
Oh my God.
You guys are a real big nuke fan.
Well, he was a nuclear scientist, so it was his job.
Sense,
But
I didn't know we'd go in this direction, but now I'm curious because I have to ask. So obviously the bombs is a very contentious topic, and the argument for it, beyond just some guy going gung-ho, Pearl Harbor, I think the, let's say, more sophisticated argument would be Japan was not willing to surrender in this war. They were basically saying we would have to do a land invasion. This would have taken, tens of millions of lives on both sides, and the bomb was the way to escalate it to the point that Japan was forced to give up, and that was the better of 2 horrific outcomes. That is the argument on the American side. Is that taught to Japanese people? Is that considered? Like, how is?
I don't think that it's taught in that level of detail to Japanese. I mean, in America, we learn it in that way, and that's the way they teach it when you take a tour of the Smithsonian, the one in Virginia that has the atomic bomb airplane at it. They'll tell you, this saved millions of lives by dropping these bombs.
Right.
But what ifs in history are impossible. You can't prove a counterfactual. Yeah. But there are all kinds of arguments to be made that Japan was at the point of giving up, or They were willing to accept the Potsdam Declaration, which is the unconditional surrender terms that we gave them, on the condition that the emperor be not abolished, that the monarchy would still exist. And there were back channel communications that eventually led the Japanese to believe that the emperor would be kept, and that really contributed to their decision to surrender. And the Soviet invasion of Manchuria was also as big, maybe even bigger than the atomic bombs to the Japanese side. From their perspective, their whole game plan was Russia is still neutral. They have a treaty that promises not to attack us that we signed with them in, I think, 1940. So this non-aggression pact allows us to use Russia, who are friends with those other countries, to negotiate an end to the war. But then Russia broke this treaty. The treacherous Russians broke the treaty. And that's another part of like the anti-Russian
So they got
thing.
the islands, right?
Yeah. So like they had a treaty. They promised not to, like for at least 1 or 2 more years, there was a non-aggression pact. And the Russians, the Japanese respected that pact when Hitler invaded Russia. They ultimately had a debate about whether they were going to attack Russia. And they said, no, we have this treaty. And also the southward advance is more important. I'm getting off topic, but anyway.
Sure.
Yeah, but the A-bombs, there's all kinds of arguments to be made. And I think a lot of Japanese believe that maybe the war could have ended without the bombs. And they certainly think that the bombs are something that you shouldn't celebrate. You should think about the suffering. One of the biggest groups of people who died were junior high school students because they were working in factories in the middle of the city. And so it's like a very tragic thing. Every Japanese school child tends to either watch movies that are graphic about Hiroshima and Nagasaki or visit the places as a school trip and see just the horror of it. And so they can't imagine the idea of like people joking about the atomic bombs or like wearing atomic bomb t-shirts and stuff like that. Like that really offends them like greatly. Or like if somebody says like on the internet, as they often do, like 2 weren't enough or something like that, like that makes them very angry. And I remember I was interviewed by the media back when there was the Barbenheimer thing going on in America.
Yeah, I was going to ask about Barbenheimer.
And then like Japanese people, some of them got offended by Barbenheimer because the official Warner Brothers Japan account liked or retweeted some comment about it. And then they're like, what the hell? Like we're going to boycott the Barbie movie now because you're saying that like the A-bomb thing is funny. Because it was like a meme with like Barbie and an A-bomb or something like that. And so Warner Brothers Japan had to apologize. Actually, I think it was the U.S. account, Warner Brothers U.S. account liked something. So Warner Brothers Japan had to say, sorry, that wasn't us. We are respectful of the bombs and like it's a tragedy and stuff. And so like it's not a thing you joke about here.
Got to be incredibly weird to have America combining Barbie and op and the bombs into this fun meme marketing, and you're sitting here in this other side of the world.
Japan had like a 9/11 movie mixed with an anime that were
it'd be incredibly strange.
It'd be an insane, strange thing.
I cannot even imagine.
That would unfortunately be really funny.
Although
I mean, it does say that the box office of Oppenheimer in Japan was pretty big. Like
there was this thing on the internet, people claiming that it's never going to be released in Japan, but there are cinema fans here. Okay, lots of people who like films by famous directors, and they're not going to miss out on. I think it's Nolan directed it, right? Yeah. So like they are going to want to see the next Christopher Nolan movie, and they don't care if it's about the atomic bomb or not. And I was interviewed by some Japanese media at the time. I had luckily seen the film in America while visiting my parents, so I actually knew that the film is not at all celebrating the bombs in the slightest. Like he's torn morally over having created this thing. And so there is one scene where he's sort of going crazy while people around him are cheering after the bomb went off. But I think some Japanese person who saw the movie abroad misread that and said, like, there's a scene of people cheering. And then, like, people on the internet were like, what? Cheering the atomic bomb? That's gross. But when it came out, it did fine. It did fine. People went to see it. They saw, even some atomic bomb survivors went to see it. And they said, this is a pretty good anti-nuclear movie, I think. But maybe they should have shown a little bit of Japan,
Right.
Is there, because in the last, let's say 10 to 20 years in America, right? I think you grow up in the US, using the example of the atomic bombs, with that narrative of justification, which, you can argue about the merits of. And I think we have a lot of things like that in American history where there are ways you're taught about how things unfolded in the past. And there has been a large educational or social movement that pushes against that and has people question the way we were taught American history, America's place in the world. Is there any sort of movement like that within Japan, within academia in Japan? Because at the same time I'm hearing that, which I can fully understand people being upset at the idea of jokes about atomic bombs or justification for atomic bombs. You know, Japan is in their own way a terrible perpetuator of war crimes within World War II as an example, right? The constant thing you hear as an American is Japan's denial of the gravity of those crimes or even the recognition of those crimes. So in the same way that the US is going through kind of a period of time where people are reconciling the things that our country has done in the past, is there anything like that here?
Yes, actually, basically the genesis for the Shinzo Abe, Takaichi kind of conservative nationalist movement took place in the 1990s as a backlash against the apologies that the Japanese government made at the time. And the Japanese government officially recognizes a whole list of these things happening. It's their official position, but there were politicians within the LDP who said, we shouldn't have made this apology. Like, the comfort women were not sex slaves. You know, the Nanking massacre is wildly exaggerated or didn't happen at all. And so these politicians, they looked at the education system, the post-war education system in Japan. It teaches that the war was a war of aggression and it was bad and it caused suffering. And some of the textbooks mention atrocities, but it's a history textbook for entrance exams. So it's very boring. It's like memorize dates and names so you can fill out on a multiple choice. And so they don't really go into that much detail. But the right wing in Japan was like, why are they teaching woke history like in our schools? They didn't call it woke. They call it masochistic history. You're inflicting pain on yourself so that you won't love your country. So, I mean, if now they've started using the word woke in katakana woke.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
No way, dude.
That's beast.
I think somebody called me that on social media once, but
You're woku?
But it's the American woke history thing started in Japan in the 1990s, and it created a whole conservative movement to try to change history to be more patriotic, which means mention the good stuff, don't mention the bad stuff, or downplay the bad stuff, or even justify the bad stuff as understandable based on what was happening at the time, and say that, you know, China and Korea are lying about history and so on. And China and Korea, to be fair, are lying about history a lot.
Everyone is, right?
But they do exaggerate things. But many of these atrocities are very, very real, and they happened. It's just that, you know, on the Korean side and the Chinese side, sometimes they give very high estimates that are higher than what most historians internationally would say is the actual number of certain things. And this is what Japanese right-wing people lock onto and say, you know, we have to correct the wrong history that's overseas. And just mentioning comfort women as sex slaves is already like something that would get them to like go after a publishing company or any kind of like, they went after, I think, a major American textbook company for doing this. They had the embassy complain to them because they used the word sex slave for comfort women. This was under Abe as prime minister, and I think Takaichi wants to continue this. They want, you know, countries to take down statues that are commemorating the comfort women and say that they were sex slaves on it, because the Japanese side is that the military wasn't directly involved. It was private brokers. You know, there are a variety of circumstances. You know, slavery, not technically slavery, but I mean, they
never want to be doing air quotes for slavery.
yeah,
It's
it's
a
like-
bad. You're in a bad.
like slave labor during the war. It's not slave labor. It's conscription. It's conscription. Okay, they were conscripted, not slavery. Like that's their view on people who had to, you know, Koreans and Chinese who had to work in coal mines and stuff like that. They do not like the word slave for that. They want to use conscripted laborers. Which, I mean, what is
Being like,
conscription?
it's like the sex slaves were bad, and then Japan being like, they were slaves.
Oh, and they also point to like there's receipts that show that some of them did get paid a lot of money. And I guess that there were some who were not slaves technically, and some of them maybe did volunteer. But I mean, a lot of them were tricked into it, or they were, you know, circumstances of poverty caused
I can't imagine it was all
parents
above
to
board.
sell
You know?
them.
Yeah.
I mean, Japan had a legalized system of prostitution back then, where parents could basically loan their children to brothels, their daughters to brothels if they were of a certain age, and then they would work to pay off a debt that their family had. So if their family goes into debt, you know, okay, we got to sell our daughter, and the system was policed in a way that the licensing system, they would make sure that it was mostly just poor people who were kind of forced into it by economic means rather than women from good families volunteering to become prostitutes. So like there's a lot of literature written about this. It's like a complicated system, but Japanese people who argue against the comfort women, narrative is that it was within this legal system and it was above board according to them. So, so yeah, it's a whole can of worms though.
Can I bring it back to modern day a bit? There's a question I wanted to ask.